programme. And this week we're going to be looking at ideas surrounding critical reflection. So I'd like us to consider how critical reflection relates to the overall reflective context and process. I'm hoping we can support some discussions of the relationship between objectivity and critical reflection. And I'd like to think we could support your own evaluation of how engaging with a situation from multiple perspectives might support your practice. And in doing that, we're building on some ideas we considered first last week, or the week before last, in fact, when we looked at week 1, critical practice. So let's look at the reflective process. And I'm sure you'll be familiar with this from your own training. Kolb's cycle of reflection. And concrete experience when you're having an experience, reflective observation when you review, reflect on your experience, your abstract conceptualization when you conclude or learn from that experience, and that's leading to active experimentation when you try out what you've learned. So you sort of make notes, you're actually in a classroom, you think about what's happened, you analyse, you evaluate issues. You then can actually learn from these issues, from the actual practical experience, and amend your own practice in order to support the next experience. So let's think about where critical reflection and ideas particularly of critical reflection come into this cycle. Now I would say they come in at every part of the cycle. And you could use, for example, the critical questioning grids that we talked about in our last session at any point of these cycles, except perhaps when you're having an experience, unless you're using them directly with students. My feeling is, however, that if we look at these ideas of reflective observation, when you review and reflect on an experience or issue, that's when you can really bring in ideas of more critical reflection, objective reflection that perhaps looks at things from a range of perspectives or as part of a collaboration with another teacher, and that should support us in our abstract conceptualization. So we'll go on and look at one of those ideas, which is going to be ideas of different perspectives. And we've talked about this briefly already. So the Foundation for Critical Thinking has a whole kind of guideline, a set of kind of ideas. They put together a whole set of standards, and one of them is totally dedicated to developing one's perspective, to creating or exploring beliefs, arguments or theories. And their principle behind that, the underlying principle, is the world is not given to us sliced up into categories with pre-assigned labels on them. And I'm sure you all know this already. Quite like the image. It is the same thing, but these two people see the particular issue from totally different perspectives, and both of course are accurate. It all depends on our visual perceptions here. And I quite like this example too, about the first pin factory manufactured brushes with firm steel bristles. They only started to produce pins when somebody realised that the bristles could be cut off and made into pins. The brush was seen as a forest of pins. It provided the seeds of all innovation. So looking at something from different perspectives could completely change the way we look at a situation. And it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is right or somebody is wrong. It's just a slightly different way of evaluating something. And the more ways we can look at something, the more ways that we can evaluate a situation, the more we will know and understand the wider context of that situation. And that's actually quite exciting, I think. So we're going to look now at objectivity. It all begins with objectivity. Easier said than done. It means you're detached, dispassionate and unbiased in your perceptions and ideas. And the question I'd put out here is, do you think that anyone can be truly objective? And we can use this perhaps as a forum discussion. Is it possible to be objective? I would say no. I would say true objectivity is almost impossible to attain, but you could prove me wrong. Here we have an idea of critical reflection too, related to this. Critical reflection involves a critique of the presuppositions on which our beliefs have been built. So in order to be truly critically reflective, we have to also critically appraise ourselves, our own beliefs, to start to understand what we would say classes our reflexive position, where we feel we stand within the context of our own ideologies, our own ideas. My topic for forum discussion this week is going to be, how productive do you think the reflective process, this reflective process, can be if we do not at least try to be objective? Can we actually start to engage fully in that cycle of reflection? So hopefully we'll get some interesting discussion going on the forum when it comes to this. How productive can the reflective process be if we don't try to be objective? Now, we have a task this week, but it's a relatively straightforward task, and that's that I'd like you to watch the video that is up on the course pages. And the discussion topic for our live sessions, and this does relate to the video, is going to be, what are my learners? What do I think are my learners' literary practices? What are my learners' literary practices? Now, I'm going to point you in the direction of references here. I will open up this board and place a link to it so that we can look at it. So if anybody is interested in exploring any of the ideas further, they can look at the references, and these are all live links. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to discussing some of these ideas put forward during the week. Thank you.